All right, everybody, welcome to episode number 2 of Life and Liberty. I am Luke. I'm here with Ross Schumann. We're stoked to be with you tonight on this Sunday night. It's a bi-weekly show. We're going to do it every other Sunday. We got a few topics to discuss. I threw all the topics in the show description on the varying socialist media platforms. So let's get started. We're going to try to keep the show to an hour. I think that's a good format.
Yep.
And basically, I think the origins of this show were really Ross and I kind of going back and forth in the Discord server, kind of going back and forth on Twitter. And he and I are both very passionate people as it relates to ideas and the things that we think are important in the world. And we decided, hey, let's just do a show. We're having a lot of really good conversations. We should just do a show where we can sort of broadcast these conversations, and hopefully some people can benefit from these conversations by simply making them public. So let's just jump right into it. Ross, I think you had an announcement you wanted to make.
Well, so I mean, it's an announcement inside of an announcement to be announced later is what it really is. So I am and have been approached to run for office again. Now, not as high profile as what I ran before. So it is
which was a House seat,
which was a United States Congress seat. So that's fairly high profile for the first election you ever try to go for, right? I mean, that's sticking your pole in the big lake and hoping to catch the monster, right? That's not saying, okay, let's get a bobber and see if we can catch a perch. That's saying, hey, let's see if we can get a great white on our first cast. So
and really quick, in which district, where are you located geographically? Which district, and what's the geographic location of that district? Just
so I was running in Texas 11, which is everything from Midland, Odessa, over to like Cisco Ranger, Texas, which is pretty close to Fort Worth. And then pretty much if you draw a line down to Llano and then back over to Midland, Odessa, it's a monster district. It is very, very, very large. So it was, very difficult to try to run that. Now, the election I'm looking at now is a local election. It's a city seat. It's, a citywide seat, but it's, it's a good starter. And you know what? We've been talking about this a lot lately. We've seen the fruits of the labor for the left when it comes to local elections. They have prioritized local elections, and what they've basically been able to do is utilize those positions to facilitate their chicanery when it comes to national elections, because they know that those people are the people in charge of elections by and large.
So you're positing that, and I don't disagree, but I'm just bringing this up to clarify for the sake of the audience, for the sake of the listener. So what you're positing is that because they've sort of taken over at the local level, they are able to control elections, insert fraud if they wanted to, have a much more sort of like a direct tap into the local election cycles. And by virtue, it's sort of like the opposite of like, it's like, trickle down economics, but it's like trickle up politics.
Yeah, basically. So if you're working on a pyramid and you control the base, if I can control the base of the pyramid, then I control the top as well, because I control everything that's going up from there. So I don't need to control the top. I need to control the bottom. And the left is focused on that bottom. The left, I said it to Kyle and I'll say it to you. We can bitch and moan and argue all we want and say how we don't like her and whatever. Stacey Abrams has just changed the course of America for the next 2 years. Stacey Abrams is the reason Georgia flipped. You can not like it, you can hate it. I don't like it, but she did. She won. She won the battle.
Can you explain to the audience how she did that?
So she won.
This is pretty nitty-gritty politics, and I think this is important to explain.
Yeah, she won by getting a lot of local politicians that she likes and that she agrees with, that she knew that she could control, that she could instigate some amount of control over, that would all do things within what she wanted to have happen. Then by doing that, she was able to apply pressure at the state level to get this agreement that basically they weren't going to check signatures on audited ballots. That they weren't going to, on mail-in ballots, we're not going to check signatures. And she was able to enforce that by having the people who would be the ones checking those signatures and deciding whether those ballots are count or not be her people. Because those people are her people, she can dictate whether or not those ballots are going to be checked or not. And that gives her the power to then decide which ballots count, which ballots don't.
But I thought that was a lawsuit that Raffensperger settled with a sort of like a brokered deal with Mark Elias.
It was kind of Mark Elias and it was kind of Stacey Abrams, that they got this deal that they weren't going to force election security as hard in Georgia. Now, if they had lost the deal, if they had lost the lawsuit, say they didn't get that settlement, they still have control of those seats. Let's say Fulton County, right? Fulton County is the county in question in Georgia. That's the county that flipped the state. They still own the local politicians at that level. They're still going to be able to dictate to those politicians what they want done. So if you want a free and fair election, the way you can do that is by electing the people who control the elections. Those are people that are county clerks, city councils, county judges. These are all elected officials in most states. Like people who are saying, oh, well, a judge threw out the case in Michigan and judges aren't partisan. State judges in Michigan are elected officials. They are partisan. Of course they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning they didn't just do this in Georgia, and this is why, Stacey Abrams played a role, but that you also, the left, I almost wonder, like, I think that it's more about the right being flat-footed and being constantly reactionary in nature and not proactive like the left is. Let me ask you this. I'm curious to know your response. Where in the hell was the right for the months leading up to this election cycle? Why weren't they suing the shit out of these states to... why didn't Trump issue some sort of executive order? Look, I think it's important to, I've heard people say maybe we should at the federal level control how elections operate. I totally disagree with that because if you do that, then it's just a matter of now it really is a transfer of power because now the left can just say, okay, we will.
Then it really does become democracy.
Yeah, at that point they'll declare at that point, okay, Texas, we are forcing upon you from the federal level the fact that you can't have signature verification. This is what as long as elections are managed at the state level, that's a good thing because it's very, very difficult to get sweeping changes done across the entire nation. And if you want elections to be handled at the federal level, that is a very, very dangerous proposition. And now it becomes even that much more important. Who's quote unquote in power? I don't even like that verbiage, but. The right is just so far behind. Let me ask you this: why in the hell is it that the right is constantly flat-footed, constantly they're back against the wall, constantly reactionary in nature, and the left is just they go after the judiciary I'm not pushing back here necessarily. They try to control the bottom of the pyramid. They control the middle of the pyramid. They control the top of the pyramid. They go after the judiciary. They go after the state legislature. They go after the politics. They sue the shit out of everybody. I mean, it's a multi-pronged attack from every single direction, from at every level, top to bottom. And then the right's like, oh, Matt Gaetz based in Red Pilled, and like that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
so there's a couple different things here. Number one is first and foremost, the right cares about what the left's perception of it is. Way too much. Yeah. The left does not care about our perception of them. We can call them socialists. We can call them traitors. They simply don't care. It means nothing to them. They're going to just keep on doing what they're going to do. They have no concern for when we argue, when we sit here and say, oh, but norms and these things are, the traditions. They don't care because that gets in their way. Those are things they already are opposed to. So they're not concerned when we accuse them of violating them. That the right, I keep saying this. Why do we care what people who hate us think of us? Because if they hate us, if I hated you, right, and you came out to me and you said, you know what, Ross, I'm going to make X, Y, or Z change because you hate me and I think this is the reason why. I'm just going to shift my hatred to you to the next thing that I don't like, and I'm just going to keep shifting it. And and if you want me to like you, you're going to have to keep making changes and keep having to make sacrifices until eventually you just are me. right?
Yeah, I call this plug and play politics, where 1 minute it's Greta Thunberg and climate change, and then as soon as that's exhausted and the evidence comes out or something, and it becomes old, then they're like, okay, let's shift to racial oppression and BLM, and then once that's old, they shift to the oppression of lower classes, the shrinking of the middle class, and the rich are getting richer. As soon as that gets old, they're back to climate change, and it's like a 2-year cycle. I guarantee you, next summer we're going to be talking about climate change and not BLM.
Yeah. The greatest example of this over the election was when the news came out that Trump had supposedly called soldiers. What was it? That he had supposedly said about soldiers in France. Bunch of losers, right? And we had 25 or so people come out and say Trump didn't do it, but the right spent 2 months trying to argue and defend this to the left. But we have a video of Joe Biden calling a room of soldiers stupid bastards, and they literally within 3 days that was over because they just ignored it, right? Yeah. If you have a bully and you ignore them, it's not fun for them anymore, so they give up and they go away. Whereas if you respond to their attacks, it's more likely that they're going to come back and continue to attack you. So the left gets us to respond. So right now, it's everybody on the right is a terrorist. And so many people are
insurrectionists.
Yeah, insurrectionist, terrorists. Now here's the thing, right? You can't argue. Anytime you attempt to argue against that, immediately what they're going to say is that you're defending the actions on the 6th, whether you are or not. Because I don't defend the actions on the 6th. I just want to call ball and strikes, right? But what happened over the summer were riots, and those should be condemned just as much as what the people did on the 6th did, okay? Whoever killed those cops on the 6th, those people should be held legally liable, legally accountable for that action, just as the people who killed David Dorn should be. There should be no difference. We should be able to say rioting is bad, period. Regardless of whether you voted for me or you didn't vote for me, rioting is bad. But for the people who are saying that Bernie Sanders isn't responsible for the guy shooting Steve Scalise, even though he had a list of names that Bernie Sanders had just written off the day before, and those were the people he was targeting to shoot, and Steve Scalise was at the top of that list, Bernie isn't responsible for that. But Trump saying we have to have election security and we have to, demand it from our senators and our congressmen. Trump didn't say go storm the Capitol and hold them hostage until they do what we want. So it's a little bit of, they know that they're going to try to get under our skins, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for an excuse to report you to Twitter because they know that Twitter will take a momentary snap at that and just delete your account.
Yeah, totally. Well, okay, we got way off track here. We're 12 minutes in, and you haven't even made your announcement about the announcement for the future announcement.
So okay. So the goal here is that looking at where we are now, and I realize that I live in an area where we are mostly conservative here. And even our city elections are run by conservatives, run by, Republicans at least, because 84% of this district voted Republican. This is an oil and gas city. But still, you put your money where your mouth is, right? That's what I've always told people. If you're going to complain, then you need to be willing to stand up and try to do something about it. So what I have been saying on the last few days on Twitter and the last few weeks is, look, we have to focus on local elections. That means Luke, did you know that we elected a conservative city councilman in Austin?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, we got a conservative city councilwoman put in office in Austin. The first time in about 10 years that a conservative will sit on the city council there. And if they can win there, that means they can win anywhere because Austin is as liberal as it gets now. So what I'm saying is often what we see is we don't win these local elections because we simply don't have a candidate. So what I have decided to do, there is an at-large city council seat in my town that is going to be up for election, and it doesn't look as if the incumbent will run again. Looks like the incumbent is set to retire. So I have decided that I am going to form an exploratory committee because I haven't officially and am not officially announcing my candidacy yet, but I am going to look at running in that election and put my money where my mouth is. I want people to run in these seats, so I'm going to do it as well. And I'm going to work here to make changes that I think this city needs, which one of those changes is that in this city, We have oil and gas, and that's great. And we make a ton of tax revenue off of oil and gas, and that keeps the city afloat. But this city needs to start planning and start diversifying its industry. And so I think as a city, we need to start looking at how we can get other industries into this town that will help supplement and build further, and then also provide a relief when oil and gas isn't as strong as it is at this present moment.
Yeah. Well, okay. So see if you can sum that up. So you're not running for city council, correct?
So essentially I will be, I am 90% certain that I am going to run for city council. It is an at-large city position, which means I can live anywhere in the city, and I will represent the entire city. So we have a council seat for every district in the city, but my district was elected last year. It's a 3-year seat. So my district was elected last year, so he's not up for election. So I couldn't run for any of the other districts because I don't live in those districts, but I can run for an at-large city seat. So there's 2 at-large city seats. Both are coming up for election this term. So I am going to be running for one of those.
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and ask for the sale now?
So basically what that says is that in this city, the last mayoral election took about $150,000 to $120,000 for the winning seat. So as it's a citywide election as well, that means I would need similar money to what the mayoral candidates are looking for. What we're looking for is to see if we can raise between $10,000 to $15,000 within the next 2 months to be able to, when we do make the official announcement here in the city, to be able to start the campaign, that we have the funds to immediately start a campaign in earnest. And we're not trying to play catch up, and we can get out of the gate running.
So are you running against anybody, or is this kind of just a general sort of election sort of thing?
So there will be other people running. It is a general election. There is no primary in this election. So I will be running against anybody and everybody else who wants to run. It is a simple, whoever gets the most votes out of the group, you don't need a clear majority. You just need the most votes out of everybody else running. So right now, there's tentatively one other candidate who's thinking about it, but it's not, the deadline to file for the election is June. The election, of course, will be held in November. But we want to get started now. We want to start planning for it now. We don't want to wait till June and then be trying to get all this stuff done. We want to start looking into this possibility today. And what we're going to be looking for is how can we get the campaign off and running with a bang? So we're planning some events locally here with some major conservative figures that I've become friends with over my time interviewing them with SBU, to be able to bring them here and hold an event to announce to the city, this is me, this is who I am, and I am running for this position. And here, enjoy, a concert by these conservative people who are musicians, one of which who was #1 on iTunes in the hip hop charts just a couple weeks ago. And we're going to put on a concert, a donation concert, trying to raise money that way. But of course, we need initial funding to get those things done.
Okay, so who is we in this context?
We is the people who are working with my campaign. So right now, I have a few people who are advising me, some who work at congressional level, who are interested in ensuring city and local elections stay prominent with people that they know and people they can trust, because they know how quickly things can change if city elections aren't taken seriously. And they know how quickly, if we lose these seats, how quickly these people can have an effect on the lives of their constituents. So everybody's worried about the president. Everybody's worried about the senators. And they do have an effect on your day-to-day life. But I guarantee you, your city council deciding that your property tax bills are going to double next year is going to affect your day-to-day life much more than any senator or the president even is going to in most years. Unless they go to war, usually your city council will have a more effect on your day-to-day life.
Okay, so so you're trying to raise $10,000 to $15,000 by March 1st, over the course of the next 2 months. Yep. Is there any way at this point for people to donate to your campaign, should they so choose to do so? So
at the moment, there is not. We are looking into the legal process we need to do to be able to accept campaign contributions. So if you are willing to donate, if you want to donate, hold off for a moment or two. Let me get the legal framework set up to ensure that everything we do is above board, to ensure that all donations taken are taken in a correct legal manner. So there's a federal election commission. There is also a Texas election commission. So we have to ensure that we are doing everything by the board. So we will be, in the course of the next week or so, setting up these accounts, setting up these methods of which you can then donate. And then those donations will be allowed to come in and be put in. Now, mind you, with federal elections, there's a limit to how much you can donate. But Texas does not place a limit on how much you can donate. So if you want to donate 10, 15 bucks, $5, that's great. If you can donate more, fantastic. But we will be taking donations coming within the next week or so. So get talking to your friends, get talking to your neighbors. If you want to see local politicians, again, we want to win these national elections. It starts by building the foundation at the bottom. You don't build your house from the roof up, from the roof down. You build your house from the cement up.
Yeah. All right, great, man. Well, then let's shift gears. And before we go on, dear listener, we now have a locals.com. We have a locals community for Zero Gravity Media. We'll be posting everything there. I didn't even drop the social medias. I'm so terrible at marketing ourselves, but you can join our locals community.
We'd easily have 1 million subs if you would just mention to subscribe in any video you do.
Exactly. Yeah, you can join our locals community, zerogravitymedia.locals.com. And of course, you can find everything we do at zero-gravity-media.com, including this show. I'm starting to post this stuff, produce the show, the audio format for the shows, which is really exciting. So let's shift gears. The purges, the socialist media purges.
Yeah, a serious time right now.
Yeah, dude, I've never seen anything like this. I had 800 Twitter followers. I'm down under 600. So
I went from 1900 to 1600.
Yeah. So I've lost over 200. I've lost about
now
a quarter of my.
The question we have to ask here is how many of these people were people who just said, you know what, I'm tired of Twitter and I'm leaving. Which is fine. That's a free will decision, right? If you decided to delete your account, that's you making that decision. Now, if you decided to delete your account because they banned Trump, we're going to get to that in just a minute. But you deciding to delete your account is perfectly fine. You have the right to do so. How many of those accounts were removed based off of really subjective BS reports or complaints against them? So I told you 2 weeks ago, I got a temporary suspension because I had a guy telling a good friend of mine who's a black guy that, he espoused clean gene rhetoric, which is, basically straight out of Mein Kampf, which was, Hitler said the master race, we need to be clean genetically. The Germans need to, we need to purify the German race and only have these true Germans among them. And then he also said that this black man needed to evolve, of course, which was then implying that he was not as human as a white man. And I called him out for it, and Twitter suspended me for calling him out for it because I called him a bitch in the tweet. It was like, really? This guy's allowed to basically tell a black man that he's subhuman and then espouse literal Nazi propaganda in scientific racism of eugenics. But I'm the one who gets suspended for that? That doesn't make sense. So we know that Twitter is going to use subjective analytics, subjective theology in order to decide who does and does not get to keep their accounts, who does and does not get to speak.
Yeah, it's abundantly obvious. I'm guessing most of the people that all the followers I've lost, I'm guessing, are it happened too quick. They just shut their accounts down. And I'm shutting my account down in the next month or so. I'm going to set it to private, and then I'm just going to. I have no interest in being on Twitter anymore. I moved over to Parler. I created a Parler account. I'm not too happy with Parler. It's slow. It's buggy.
It's not a same. So Parler is a viable alternative. I wouldn't say it's commercially as good as Twitter. So the question now is going to become, you've got 8 more hours of Parler, 9, because at midnight tonight, AWS is turning off their server.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other things you can do.
Yeah, they can port all that information over to a different server provider, but it's going to take time. But the question is how long before they go after the next one, right? So AWS agreed. So how long before whoever is their next provider, their next host, decides to dump them, right? And how often are we going to do this? And we openly have Twitter, Jack Dorsey, celebrating that Google, Apple, and Amazon went after Parler, his biggest competition in the market to date, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, of course he is. Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, so again, they're going to use the government to enforce their oligopoly monopolistic activities, right? So they're going to look to the government to prevent free competition. They don't want free competition. Look, if you're a liberal and you hate the idea of Parler, don't join Parler. Don't get on Parler. It doesn't. You don't have to. Nobody's going to put a gun to your head and say you have to go on Parler, right? But why do you get a say whether or not somebody else can get on Parler? Do you have the option to download these encrypted messaging apps like Signal or whatever, and you can send your messages in privacy, but people who want to have conservative conversations on Parler are not allowed to do so, right? And for everybody who says, well, Parler allows X, Y, and Z people, and those people are violent. There's violent people every day on Twitter, and they don't get removed.
Yeah. I think you're operating from the premise, though, that the left still believes in the concept of freedom of speech. And
no, they don't. No. I'm not. I'm making the point that
on that anymore. Of course.
Yeah, I'm making the point that they're going to use that as a bludgeon against us because, of course, immediately became, well, Twitter's a private company. Twitter can kick whoever they want off. And of course, then the obvious came, right? Well, if they can kick whoever they want off, then a business owner can keep whoever he wants out of his business, right? If there's no rules for deciding who gets to be on this platform and who gets to use it, then why does a business owner have rules for who he can allow in his establishment and not allow? Why is that okay? Why does a cake baker have to make a cake for somebody then? Why is that? Why is that the way it is? So they are definitely going to push this double standard. And what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to use your principles against you. They're going to try to take your principles and flip them on their head. They don't abide by your principles. They're never going to abide by your principles. So trying to explain your principles to them is a moot point. Don't even worry about it. Just ignore them, right? And if you're on Parler, you can block people on Parler. You can mute people on Parler just like you can on Twitter. There is moderation. I have the ability to decide who I do and do not want to hear on Parler just as I do on Twitter. The difference of Parler is that they are not going to go after – they do have content moderation. The content moderation is just by a jury of your peers and not by Parler employees.
Yeah, I know. How weak and pathetic is that it's like, oh, I can't moderate my own content and my own conversations. I need somebody to do it for me. Like this is the state of these leftist mentality. Like they can't even think.
Well, the goal is to the goal is to centralize power, because if we can centralize power, we can centralize control. So if moderation is controlled by a group of people, it's easy to control that group of people. It's not easy to control the general public. It's not easy to control everybody. It's real easy to control this small group of people. This is why businesses aren't focused anymore on marketing to the consumer. They're worried about marketing to Congress, because we're not a socialist country. We're just a country who decides which 4 companies are allowed to do business, and by virtue then which 4 companies you're allowed to do business with. And those businesses are chosen based on what benefit to the people in power they have.
Yeah, we're much more fascist than we are socialist, the government is, in terms of controlling the markets. Because fascism is really just controlling the markets, whereas socialism is basically destroying them and distributing them. Yeah.
Fascism, it's controlling who you can and cannot associate with. So if I own a business and I want it to be open, then you can choose to do business with me or not. You can choose to associate with me or not. But if the government closes that business and only leaves Amazon, Walmart, and Target open, well, you still need toilet paper. You still need food. So you're going to have to associate with some of them, regardless of whether you want to or not, right? You may have wanted to say, I'm going to shop locally. I'm going to go to my local grocery store. I know I'm going to pay more money. It's like Parler. I know Parler's not as good of a user experience as Twitter. I know it's not as user friendly and easy to use. And I know that there's going to be a lot more crazy people on there. But I understand that and am willing. I value the ability to speak freely and not be limited to 140 characters more than I do what I'm getting from Twitter. So Twitter knew this. So they weren't going to look to market to the consumer to say, hey, don't leave Twitter for Parler because we want you guys to stay. We want your ad revenue. They just simply said, hey, other companies that are able to make a change on Parler do so that the value proposition of Parler goes down or doesn't exist at all.
Yeah. This is why, again, the irony here, it's much more fascistic than it's much more fascistic than it is socialist in that sense. But yeah, I mean, that you do make a salient point there. I mean, they absolutely don't care at all about marketing to the consumer anymore. They're marketing to the quote unquote woke left. They're marketing to the Congress. And it's just funny. I mean, the left is just, they claim to be, oh, we're pro small business, we're pro this, we're pro. It's like they have completely turned a 180 on everything for which they assert to believe. And they're now big business, big tech, government corruption, pro-monopoly, anti-free markets, anti-free speech, anti-free thought. They are, dude, it's just hilarious to me, man. They have become everything which they once loathed in the very recent past. We're talking.
Well, again, it's consolidate power, consolidate control. Right? It's easy to control Twitter. It's easy to control a small group of companies much more than it is to control a whole bunch of small companies. Right? It's a lot easier to get Twitter to do what you want them to do, because they, Jack Dorsey doesn't want the gravy train to turn off. Right? He wants the money to keep rolling in, so he's going to do what Congress wants him to do. What these Congress people want him to do. And you saw, as soon as control of the Senate, control of the government flipped hands, he flipped the switch. I mean, it was the immediate effect of, okay, Democrats are going to own the Senate.
Not just Jack Dorsey and Twitter. All of them did. Apple did. Twitter did. Amazon did. All of them. The moment, Trump's not even out of office yet, and they're already like, okay, bye. And this is a sitting president that they're
we now know it went to Amazon now knows whose bread they got to butter to keep getting those military contracts, right? That's where we are. Twitter now knows who bread they have to butter to prevent from being shut down or have any extra regulation placed on them. And also they know whose bread they have to butter to get regulations placed on their competition. And don't make it, I've been saying this for months, right? It's not about the regulations placed on them because they can pay to avoid them or get exemptions put in place for themselves. It's about getting regulations put on their competition. They know very good and well that it's their competition, these upstarts, right? We're seeing it now with Parler. Oh, well, I guess they need to build their own server farm. I guess they need to build their own infrastructure. I guess they need to build all their own stuff because they know that that's going to increase the barriers of entry to a point where these companies will not be able to be competitive and or exist.
Yeah, there's no better example of that than Amazon, the noble Amazon, Jeff Bezos committing to paying our factory workers, our warehouse workers, $15 an hour.
Yep.
The reason they're doing that is because they know that the small mom and pop shops can't afford that. And it's going to put them out of business. So they're going to Congress. They want to pass $15 an hour, put all the mom and pop shops out of business because they can't afford to pay those wages. And then, meanwhile, Jeff Bezos and Amazon are going to invest in automation, and they're going to automate all those $15 an hour jobs out of existence anyway. Because they can afford to do that. This is, when you, every time, like every regulation in the marketplace, you should be looking like, okay, this isn't about the regulation. What is this about? That's the real question.
Well, and I always ask Dims this because I keep saying, I said, why would Jeff Bezos, the billionaire capitalist, why would he be in favor of a $15 an hour minimum wage? Well, because he's a good guy. It's like, no, y'all argue that he's not a good guy all the time. Y'all argue how evil he is. But yet, because he's voting for something you guys like, all of a sudden it's because he's a good guy. Maybe stop and think about what his logic is, right? Not what your logic is, which is you think you're going to get a pay raise, which you're not, but you think that he's doing something for your benefit. No, it's for his benefit. Of course it is, or he wouldn't do it, right? The reason for it, and I've said this before, this $15 an hour minimum wage isn't even about the mom and pops. $15 an hour minimum wage is about Walmart and Target. Because what he can then do is he can force Walmart and Target to have to pay their employees more because they're not going to do it willingly, right? Walmart and Target aren't going to increase their employee wages, and they're much more labor independent than Amazon is. Amazon contracts out its shipping, right? UPS, FedEx. Those aren't hired employees. They contract out a lot of their labor. So they're not labor dependent. Their labor costs are not going to increase. And as Luke said, they're just going to automate any of that labor out anyway. So who gets hurt is Walmart and Target. So we used to have price,
but also mom and pops as well.
Well, mom and pops are as well, but they've already increased the regulations to a point where mom and pops basically can't exist at this point anyway. So I think the $15 an hour minimum wage, while it will hurt mom and pops, assuredly, is more aimed at Walmart and Target than it is at the mom and pops. Of course, it will have drastic consequences to mom and pops and just put them out of business. But now they're looking to the next step, which is Walmart and Target. So if they can make Walmart and Target, we used to have price predation, right? We used to have where Walmart would come into a town and they would drop their prices to a point that nobody could afford to match them. Those companies, everybody, of course, would go to shop at Walmart because the prices are cheaper. The other companies would go to business, and then Walmart would bring their prices back to a normal level. Now we've got wage predation. Amazon is using wage predation in order to hurt Walmart and Target, and they're going to use the government to enforce it. And they can't. None of this works unless the government forces a floor on the price of wages. So if they bring the price of wages up, at Walmart and Target are going to have to pay those higher wages. They're either A, going to have to sacrifice on service because they can't have employees in the store stocking shelves anymore, or B, they're going to have to raise prices. Now, remember, if Jeff Bezos just needs to be cheaper than they do, he doesn't have to be at the prices he's at now. He just has to be a penny cheaper than they are. So if Walmart and Target raise their prices because of additional costs, and Bezos doesn't have those additional costs, and he can raise his prices, it increases his profit margin.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember back in the day, at the grocery store. You remember when we used to have sackers? People would bag your groceries for you. Yeah, that's a thing of the past now. People running around outside collecting carts. That's a thing of the past. And all of this is just from all of these bullshit regulations and taxes increasing the cost of labor and companies shaving down on service offerings like this.
Yeah, and we see it at McDonald's. They've got they've got the automated, walk in there and you can take your order now. There's nobody there to take your order. You have to type in what you want, and it's hard to figure out how to work it, but it's functional. You can order what you need to order, and the chances of getting something wrong because an employee pushed the wrong button, the only people you can blame for getting something wrong are yourself, because obviously you pushed the wrong button. You were the one putting the button in. But it's like at Walmart and H-E-B, we now have these self-checkout aisles, because it's cheaper. Those machines can work 24/7, and we can have one person manning 40 machines versus 40 individual checkers working 40 individual machines. That means 39 people per shift who don't have health insurance, who don't have to be paid an income, don't have to take breaks, don't have sick days, don't have any of that to have to worry about. That's 39 people per shift we don't have to pay.
Yeah. We got 20 minutes left, so let's shift gears here. We've kind of already touched on Parler losing their servers. Let's talk about the hypocrisy of the left on riots and protests. What did you want to talk about with respect to that?
So, again, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, right? Like, they're going to be hypocritical. Just accept that, right? They're not going to admit to it. I had a lady yesterday who just bound and determined to tell me that all the protests over the summer were peaceful, and it's only the Republicans who harm people. And I was sending her the stories of David Dorn, sending her the stories of arson and looting and all this other stuff. And to her, it was just, that wasn't us. So they're still mostly peaceful. And I said, okay, you live in Nashville. Send me a story of an event in Nashville that was 100% peaceful. No negative things at all. She sent me a story, and in the story it says mostly peaceful. There were only minor skirmishes with the police and minor property damage. Now, it doesn't quantify what minor is, right? Is minor compared to, hey, we're going to burn down the city of Los Angeles and cause $5 billion worth of damage? Because it's pretty easy to be minor compared to that, right? Like, okay, if it's not this, it's minor. So where does this lie? But I sent her then 10 other events in Nashville that all definitely ended in riots. That there were arrests for arson, arrests for looting, murder, all kinds of different vandalism and options. And she's still going to tell me, well, most of them were peaceful. Most of the events were not peaceful. This is binary. 1 equals it was completely peaceful. 0 equals there was some amount of violence. If there's any amount of violence, any amount of skirmishes with police, it's a 0. There's no scale between. There's no 0.9, 0.8, 0.7. It's either peaceful or not peaceful. Those are your options.
Yeah.
So,
binary. Yeah.
So can we say that the 6 was peaceful? No, it wasn't peaceful. Can we say that most of it? So I told her, I said, okay, I'll be fair. Let's be honest here, right? Most of the people at those events were peaceful, but the events themselves were not. That is where you can make a legitimate argument, right? Because again, most of the people who were protesting over the summer were, I can't put it, say 85%, were not the ones committing violence. But the 15% of the people who were, nobody cares about the other 85%. We care about the people who are committing violence. The people, there was supposedly between 75,000 and 125,000 people that went on the 6th to Washington, D.C. Out of those 75 to 125,000 people, I think the number they suggested was close to 100 stormed the Capitol. So out of 125,000 people, 100 did violent things. That doesn't make the group violent. But the left has now changed the equation when it comes to the right. When it comes to the right, when it comes to the left, they say, well, no, it's about how many people out of the group were violent. The vast majority of the group was not violent. So therefore, it's a not violent event. Whereas they'll say violence occurred at the rights event. So therefore, everyone at the event was violent. They've changed the equation.
This is not rocket science, though. I mean, of course they did. Of course they do. I mean, this
of course
part of the course.
But if you're going to try to argue with them on this is what the left did, this is what the right did, again, remember, they don't care.
But here's the thing. I don't argue with them. It's pointless. Like, I have a rule. If I sniff out that you are intellectually dishonest, I disengage immediately because it's a complete waste of my time. Discussing something with somebody who's intellectually dishonest is a complete waste of my time, and I immediately disengage. So, like, I don't. This is in many ways, and I was talking about this on the show last night. I'm reinvigorated the fact that actually Biden's in office now, because now I can actually engage people on the right who generally are far more intellectually honest. I can actually have like much better and more meaningful conversations. I find talking to people on the left a pointless venture and a complete waste of time. There are so few people on the left that are even worth discussing these things over. That, I mean, yeah, we can point it out to people on the right and say, like, this is happening, and they go, oh, okay, that's interesting. But I don't even find it useful to try and point this out to them, because they're so either completely uninformed. They have no idea what they're talking about. They just get all their talking points from MSNBC and CNN.
Yeah.
So they're just uninformed, and they don't know the facts, and they're just completely ignorant as
they're
to
just
the
going to
facts.
believe what they were.
They're intellectually dishonest, in which case they're a complete waste of time. And most of them are both. So yep. I don't know. I mean, of course they do that. And of course it's a complete waste of time to even talk to them about it. I don't bother with it.
Like the lady yesterday, right? I started presenting her the multiple articles spanning months and months and months of time from this summer, from all the way from March into late October, about riots in Nashville. And she goes, oh, of course, you only looked up the ones that were about riots. And it's...
Yeah. You just wasted all that time. How much time did you spend on that?
It's like I didn't spend that much time. I was walking around Walmart.
But whatever amount of time you spent on it is a complete waste. You just wasted all that time.
So her argument was that because she could prove that one day was mostly peaceful, not even completely peaceful. I kept pointing out to her. Said in your story, it says that there were skirmishes and property damage. It just doesn't say how much. It doesn't quantify the damage, right? So I can then point out that there were all these. They're not going to argue by a set of rules. And like you said, you were completely right. they're going to listen to CNN and they're going to listen to MSNBC, and whatever the opinionists on those sites say is what they're going to believe. So they're trying to convince you right now, like, okay, I'm not terribly proud of what Donald Trump has done over the last week and a half, but he also didn't tell anybody to go storm the Capitol and hold any senators or congressmen at gunpoint. He never said that. Rudy Giuliani said the words trial by combat, which taken out of context sound really bad, but it's not what he was intending to say, right? That's not what he was saying. He was saying that the ideas should be a trial by combat. We should be able to have trial by combat of our ideas, not of actual fist-to-fist, hand-to-hand combat. Trump never told a single person, go storm the Capitol. He said, we're going to march to the Capitol and we're going to let them know we're here and let our voices be heard. But over the Kavanaugh hearings, we had Democrats storming the Supreme Court, storming the Senate building, storming the Capitol building. All that was fine. That was democracy in action. But when Republicans do it, it's, terrorism. So I think that,
but again, of course, like I find all this totally unsurprising and not like very, I mean, everybody knows this. Listener, if you don't know this, you should. I mean, this is all so obvious. This is par for the course. This is something I talked about again on the show on HSP last night. It's like, we have like Rush Limbaugh repackaging a bunch of stuff like, oh, it's all here now. Wait till now. What's going on? It's like, they're going to start really coming after you, blah, blah. And I'm just like, Rush, have you not, what has been going on the past 4 years? It's as if the right is suddenly surprised that the left does this. This has been going on for the last 4 years and long before that too.
So don't engage. Don't try to have a battle of wits. Don't sit there and just ignore them. Right? A bully loses his power when you refuse to engage with it. Right? Don't sit there and try to. Well, we're gonna have a logical conversation, and I'm going to change this person's mind. Even if you presented all the facts in the world, the person's not going to change their mind. They're going to shift their claim. They're going to shift their narrative. They're going to make a claim and then try to shift the burden of proof onto you to prove their claim wrong. That's not how it works. If I go into a class and I make a claim that is contrary to common knowledge, I then need to prove my claim. I need to be able to say, I made this claim and here is the evidence for why I'm making this claim. I can't say the earth is made of cheese and then come to you with soil and say, this is my proof. Or say, hey, you just haven't dug deep enough to find out that I'm right.
Yeah, I mean, this is just classic, like, this is scientific method. I mean, if you make a claim, then the burden of proof is upon you to prove that to be true. If you're the one that's saying the sky isn't blue, you have to say, you're the burden of proof is upon you. It applies to science, it applies to law, it applies to everything.
Yep. Another classical tactic, and this is just for anybody listening, right? If you're getting frustrated with these people and listen, I understand. I get into these arguments with them all the time, but I don't let it bother me, right? Like I'm happy to have these arguments and just sit here and laugh at them and go about my day. They're going to try to get you upset. They're going to try to rile you up. They're going to call you names. Just ignore it. Because again, what they're trying to do is they're trying to shift from your logical argument to an emotional argument. They're trying to get you upset. They're trying to make you mad. Then what they're going to do is they're going to pick apart on semantics and use that as a way to attack your credibility. So the favorite one is your versus you are, right? Well, it's you spelled it wrong, so therefore your entire premise is incorrect. Right? Yes, grammar is important, and I agree with that. But Twitter isn't really a place for grammar per se. So again, me saying your versus you are when I'm typing in on my phone as I'm pushing a basket around HEB doesn't negate any of the logic I have presented. It's simply you not being able to refute that logic and therefore looking at a different way to discredit my argument. Because again, you're not going to argue honestly. You're not going to debate fairly or with actual intent to engage in ideas. You simply want to win. And this is, another tactic they love to use is they will disengage from a thread with you on Twitter and they will re-engage with you somewhere else if you had people that were liking your tweets, they don't want those people being in the conversation anymore. So they'll get rid of those people in the conversation so that those people don't see And like, so that what they want is they want their followers to jump on and start liking their tweets so they can then say, oh, well, more people agree with my ideas than yours. So obviously you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the reason they do this a lot is actually it's a place of insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
We had somebody comment, Gil Herma Antonio, why America's always cite movies. I guess you guys get out of the Matrix, but not out of the script. LOL. Laugh crying emoji. I'm guessing Gil Herma.
So maybe he's talking about the red versus white pill argument.
Yeah. I think, of course, that's what he's talking about. Why I think he meant Americans always cite movies. I don't know.
Why Americans always citing movies. I guess you guys got out of the Matrix, but not out of the script. Guillermo Antonio, if you want to clarify that maybe for us a little bit, we'd be happy to address the comment. We're just not quite certain what you mean. We use the term red pill, blue pill, white pill, black pill. It's really just more of colloquialism on our part. It just is it's kind of slang for, your red pill,
I think it's funny. Gil Herman, come on, bring it, man. Come on. We need to comment and clarify. He's obviously trying to troll, but it's not going to work. Wasn't even funny.
It's YouTube, so it helps our algorithm, right? It helps push us. The more comments we get on YouTube, even calling us stupid, helps push us up the algorithm and gets people to view our content. So we're happy to have you comment, even if you disagree with us. And we'll either try to answer your question honestly or laugh at you.
Yeah, I mean, this is like such a great example right here. It's like funny that we were talking about this and then here we are. It's like this is such a good example, not out of the script. It's like as if that comment is as if it's supposed to make one of us go, "Oh wow, yeah, you know what, Rox? We're totally on script right now. We got out of the Matrix, but we're totally on script. Oh my gosh, I need to go look in the mirror and do some self-evaluation and reevaluate my worldview."
Yeah. I think it's a point. It's an attempt to say that the script's meaning of red pill, blue pill had nothing to do politically, and of course not. But it's still funny, and we still use it.
Yeah, but I mean, like what is a metaphor? I mean, so like, okay, so but no, like most of the time, and like this is actually a great example right here. Thank you, Gil Herma, for actually exemplifying everything that we've just been talking about for the last 10 minutes. But this is a great example. Most of the time when people make these comments, they're like, oh, it's you're, not you are. It comes from a place of insecurity. So the laugh crying emojis, them trying to ridicule you, all this bullshit, it's coming from a place of insecurity. They have nothing else to think. And the fact that you don't agree with them is an assault on their own emotional fragility. And they are intellectually fragile. They don't know what to think. They don't know how to react. They don't know what to say. And the fact that you do know what to say, you do have convictions, and you do stand by your principles, the very fact that you do that is a threat to everything for which they actually do stand. And they cannot handle that. And all they know how to do is try to ridicule. It's actually really pathetic, dude. I've seen people like my age. I'm 36, and I've seen people my age like on Facebook ridiculing people that we went to high school with. I'm like, dude, you people are seriously acting like we're still freshmen and sophomores in high school. It's really... honestly, it's like sad seeing like people on the left behave this way. I really feel bad for them. I can't imagine how unfulfilled their life must be spiritually and intellectually, such that this is the state of mind in which you currently reside. And so this is why, like, I don't even bother I don't even entertain any of it. I don't waste my time. This is why I am very, very happy to I don't want to say go after the right. Obviously, the right is a much more promising ally than the left. That goes without saying. But I really enjoy sharpening the sword that's on the right, because they're the ones that need sharpening. The left is a lost cause. They're a complete waste of your time. Don't even engage with them. They're intellectually dishonest. Even if they know the facts, they're intellectually dishonest. Most of them don't know the facts. They're ignorant in both. So I just find the left a complete waste of time. And I'm really looking forward to focusing on improving the right, the thinkers on the right.
Yes, I think that's where we are. And you and I had this conversation the other day. And it's very important that we hold ourselves to accountability and ensure that we're holding ourselves to our standards. We know the left isn't going to hold themselves to any amount of standard. It's pointless to point out when they fail their own standards. They don't care, right? But we need to start addressing things politically towards the moderate, because that's where we can make an argument. Arguing with leftists on Twitter isn't going to win us any better.
Anywhere is it? Facebook, Twitter, in person.
It's not going to win you anything.
Doesn't matter. It's a complete waste of your time. There's very and the only time I will argue with a leftist is if I'm personal friends with them, I trust them, I know them really, really well, and we can have an honest conversation. And that is so exceedingly rare that I could count the number of leftist friends of mine with whom I can have that conversation on one hand.
But what we've had lately is because we do have a crony portion of the Republican Party. Totally. The left, who are totally crony, who are more than happy to engage in crony politics and crony capitalism. Every time a Republican does it, they say, "Oh, look, the entire Republican Party is cronyist," and to the point where even in the Republican Party, people like Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, Chip Roy, these people get ostracized even amongst the Republican Party for not engaging in that cronyism. So we need to hold the Republicans, because what's going to happen is NBC, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, they're going to highlight all the cronyism they feel is occurring on the right side, and they're going to ignore any of it that happens from the left. They're going to say that cronyism is good cronyism. That's for our better good. Those are things we like. But anytime the right engages in it, they're going to say, "Oh, see, the right is just the party of the billionaire, the cronyist," when really we know that the left is the party of Jeff Bezos and Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg. These people are on the left. So engage with your politicians and tell them, "Look, we don't want crony politics. We want fiscal responsibility at all times. We don't want crony politics when it's industries we like. We simply want laissez-faire, free market economics. We want goods and businesses to be free to associate with one another, and for businesses to succeed if they should succeed. And the consumer will be put back in power. Every time we allow for crony politics, the consumer, us, loses power in the market. And we've got to stop letting our politicians engage in the activity of the left because the left is doing it. Just because the left is doing it doesn't mean it's okay for us to do it. We have to understand and play by the new set of rules.
Yeah, and I want to touch on the standards real quick. Of course, this is a Saul Alinsky tactic, rules for radicals, which is hold the enemy up to their own standards. And don't let the left do that to you. They don't have any standards. They have no right to hold you up to your own standards. If they want to try doing that, just mock them. I just mock the left. I don't even care. I don't waste my time on them. They don't deserve my time. They don't deserve my respect. I don't allow them to hold me to my standards. They don't even know what standards are. I just mock them. I ridicule them. I laugh them off, and I waste as little amount of time on them as possible. They aren't even worth taking seriously. The only people whom I take seriously are people on the right who are intellectually honest and people on the left who are intellectually honest. And if you're not intellectually honest, you are a complete waste of my time, and I'm not even going to bother speaking with you. And if I have to, then I'm going to ridicule you and mock you until I just don't have to anymore. And so don't allow them to hold you up to your standards. You have standards, have principles, stand up for those, and associate with those who do the same. And then we can hash out if those principles and those standards are actually correct and right. And then we can go from there. Don't let anybody on the left go, "Well, why don't you blah, 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 blah." Like, if they're not intellectually honest, don't even entertain that conversation. Waste of your time.
And that goes for people on the left and the right, because there are people on the right who are similar. I had people the other day with fake names, pictures of gorillas, but they had the word MAGA in their Twitter handle. Well, I've got 60,000 Twitter followers, so obviously I'm more important than you. It's like, no, it just means that you are, cucking for Twitter followers more than I do. Right? Like, I stand up for my principles, and there are people who won't follow me because I am not willing to say the riots weren't wrong.
But dude, after the riots, I started, I kind of went off on Twitter on the right, and I was bleeding followers already. And I know it was because some of the stuff I was saying, and I do not give a shit, unfollow me. I don't care.
Yep, it's the same. It's the same button you pushed when you followed me, buddy. Trust me, it's not going to bother me any. I'll go back to having 0 followers. I don't care. It's not going to affect my day-to-day life. I enjoy Twitter, but it's not something where it's like, oh well, I make my living from Twitter. I make a perfectly comfortable living. I have a perfectly good family life. Doesn't matter to me whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, we are at 59 and a half minutes. If we want to come in on time and under budget, as Russ always says on HSP, then I think it's time for us to get out of here.
It is.
We hope that you enjoyed the show. God, I want to say dear listener because it's HSP. I don't know. I guess we can say dear listener. I don't know, but
you can say dear listener. I'm not going to say.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed the show. I think that our format will become more pointed. We'll probably have a little bit more formalized agendas moving forward. This is episode 2, and when you're doing content, it takes a little while for the hosts to kind of figure out what works and the format, and it gets better over time. So,
and we're both coming from other shows where we're used to that format, and this is not that format. This is pointedly to be a different format. So it's going to take us time to readjust to having this show versus being a part of those shows.
Exactly, totally. So if you have feedback, we encourage you to send it to us. You can find Ross on Twitter at Ross Schumann. You can also find him at Parler at Ross Schumann. You can find me at Parler at Cool Hand Lucifer. That's LUKEFAHR. Don't forget to go to zerogravitymedia.locals.com. Join the community. We'd very much appreciate it. We have a Discord server. Hit me up on DM if you want to join the Discord server. Find everything we do, zero-gravity-media.com. And of course, you can find us on YouTube at Zero Gravity Med. And you can find the audio. I'll put the audio version out of this probably tomorrow. And you can find that on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn.
Not Podbean.
Not Podbean.
As Russ loves to say, we are not on Podbean. No ZGM presence on Podbean.
Russ had a vengeance for Podbean, man.
I don't know. I've never used it. I don't know anything about it, but I just love Russ hearing, we are not on Podbean anymore. He is forceful in his denunciation of all things, beans and pods. So
yes, exactly. Yeah.
I guess maybe it's a Matrix reference. Maybe he thinks of Podbean being, in the Matrix. So I don't know. Maybe that's what it is, Jeremy. Maybe that's what he was thinking of. He's still in the script there. So, guys, and then also, if you're looking for more content, like Russ said, we have our YouTube channel, we have Facebook, we have YouTube. We're starting on Twitch, Locals, all these other places. And then please, if you're looking to support local politicians, which are going to be able to make a difference in your elections, and whether or not your elections are free and fair, please do consider in the next coming weeks thinking about donating to my campaign, as I will be running for local city office here in Midland, Texas. In the next weeks, we will have those campaigns up and running here soon. We will push those links to you to ensure that you can donate if you so choose to do. You do not need to be a resident of Midland. You do not need to be a resident of Texas in order to be able to donate. So please do help where you can. And think of helping candidates in other cities, and we'll highlight those candidates as we find them.
All right. Yep. And you will let the listener know where they can find you to donate as soon as you have that information, correct?
As soon as we have those information, those links will be provided. We'll make sure that those links are pushed out through all of our social media platforms and then announced on these shows, on all of the different shows that Zero Gravity Media hosts, to ensure that you guys have access to that information and can donate if you so choose.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining, Ross. Let's call it here. And in 2 weeks, we will proceed with episode 3.
All right, guys. God bless you all. Have a great day.
All right. Take care.